we still have more of those awesome Dauntless snacks to eat. But for right now, we still have some Rocket League to be played. It is going to be a wild one. It is going to be our fourth match of the evening. Fourth. Yes, fourth.
Yes.
Sorry. I want to make sure, right? So it's between Western Colorado and Misericordia. We didn't get to see Misericordia last time around, but they've been able to join us on this fine evening here, Grant.
They have been able to join us, and I'm glad about it. You know, it was a question. It was kind of up in the air on whether or not they were going to join us at all today. So they barely squeak in at the last possible second to play their match in front of us, and now it's all about showing us what they are made of. It's Joev, Notorious, and Sync for their team playing Western Colorado, who we did see last week, and that's Jolly, Sean, and Smalls. We'll see how this one shapes up. Already Joey taking a leap into the air. Get an early goal. Nothing become of it yet. Notorious with their shot, and this one will fall short.
I believe that I've seen him around the corner and around the bin before. Jovi30. He likes that whole dang name. It's amazing. And if we get them to connect with us as much as we connect with that name, we'll be able to see some great prominence from Misericordia. But now trying to be able to transition their way out. The Mountaineers of Western Colorado dropped to 1 and 2 from last week's fall with the Benedictine, if you believe it, based on their performance. And that's a great connection that will be on target, in sync, if you will. That'll be the Misericordia up on top.
Would you say Sync sinks this one in? Because I wouldn't. That's cringe. Lol found it, though, to the bottom 90. And we are loving it so far. It's a great pass connection. If they can find more of those, of course they're going to do well in this series. But this is what we like to call the good old Midwestern ope. The 2-second ope, will you? Let me just squeeze by you here, hon. Yep, thank you. Takes the second goal to the bank, and we love to see it.
That is a quick flip, and that's when you use that speed flip on the kickoff to get an advantage. And if you're not ready for it from the word go, well, you got to be ready for it. That's what's required, especially in this level of Rocket League. In Western Colorado, they're suffering from a little bit of the oopsie daisies, nearly letting one through. Smalls will have to collect. If there's anyone that we need to be able to see perform very well for the Mountaineers, I believe Smalls is going to have to be that top performer.
I would say so, but don't really sleep on anybody here. I think they are all capable. Maybe it's just the name intimidation, the fact that they've all got 5 characters in their name. Love to see the team synergy, as well as the way that they are playing so far. Not the best half flip that's going to give Jolly the best positioning here. In fact, they'll run all the way back, compromise themselves on the backboard. This could be dished out by Notorious, just a little slow to it. Low on boost as well. Need to collect and regroup. Jovi all the way through. Smalls catching Jovi on the wall again, but it's a pass across to Jolly. Sync with a block. And Sean with another shot. Won't find its mark. They're trying so hard to move it across, but at this point it's just panic touches to try to get something across midfield. You don't always have to rip it that way. They keep control, fire 2 shots, and come up empty on both.
I like that the Mountaineers did keep at least a bit of focus to just keep their attack going. But immediately in transition, as a response, Sync is able to bait up 1 touch. He then has a fake out from his teammate and then sinks his hat trick pretty much uncontested.
Wow. All right. We've had 2 plays like that today. 1 little aerial flare, and we've got a 3-goal game. Are we going to see all sweeps today?
Oh.
We could very well be on our way there. Jolly would have loved the double tap, but instead they'll get a normal goal that goes in for WCU.
Hey, you know what? That's the first to be able to break the ice, because they were really frozen up, unable to get any kind of momentum in this. And, you know, that'll be exactly what they have to do. Just catch the defense off guard when they're sleeping, when they're peeping, when they're creeping in that rotation. Now, Smalls from the ceiling. That one will drop nearby. All right, I like these late, more recent threats against the defense, but they have to be consistent with their overall attack.
Ooh, they almost had another one there. This MU squad, unfortunately, coming up short. Misericordia. They'll work their way back into defense. Joey with a pinch off the sidewall, looking midfield, won't find it. Instead takes a shot on their own, missing Notorious along the way. Sync with a follow-up, though. Open net. Just got to score. You have to be consistent as those opportunities don't come often, but when they do, you need to be able to capitalize.
Jolly's going to stay kind of cemented on the near side post. You had that half rotation, which will put this in harm's way again. Sync from the backboard. How many has he sunk? Is that 4 now?
I think so. It might as well be. It's a huge drop down. That's definitely a hat trick. Yeah, it's all 4 goals, all up to the mercy of Sync. So I guess Western Colorado would then be at the mercy of Sync. You got to cut these off. You got to get up on the backboard and make sure that you can cover that ground. Look at that. Nobody on the backboard at the moment. Jolly is forced to be on the ground in this situation. Smalls capitalizing on a little bit of a bump on Joe V. Nothing too much that they can't handle. Sean back to the left side, finding Smalls. Corner has a flick, got over 2. That's 2 that have jumped, but nobody's around to follow, and that's another missed opportunity for Western Colorado. Now on the backside, just needs to get it over the top, and we are 5-1 in this game 1.
Well, I was going to bring out that for both Misericordia and Western Colorado, it was either sink or swim, but Joe V30 being able to at least get themselves on the board, not let him steal all of the thunder and praise, and finish off what is otherwise a big counter clear. And so far, the Mountaineers have been at the utter mercy of the counter, of just the massive clears. Open space is scary. They like to be able to climb those mountains and see the open sky, but if you put anything in front of them and open grass to have to defend, it becomes the most frightening thing in the world. Got to be able to overcome their fears and their phobias going throughout the rest of this game and into game number 2.
There's still 80 seconds on the clock for them to be able to do those types of things, and they'll try. Hopefully starting now. Joey, though, still contains his control. Now retention to Joe V30. It's a beautiful roll-off flip. Unfortunately, nothing to be found. Time dwindling. The more time spent here, obviously, the less time you have to score. Sean cuts it off at the midfield, lofts it over Sync's head, but you look at the control from Misericordia, the way that they're able to play to that corner, maintain possession, not let anybody take over. It's just a way and a method of burning off time from the clock.
Oh, and then they still find that small little gap that could have been punished, but you don't have to do much more than just get this clock just winding down as fast as possible. If you get more time out there from getting extra scores, it's gonna take extra time for us to be able to see it in the replay. They are pretty much done. Maybe get an extra highlight to it, a little bit of a steal from Smalls. Got to see more of those kinds of connections, better defense from the likes of the Mountaineers going into game number 2, because this has been sink or swim. This has been the Cougars just ultimately applying some dominance coming into this first game of the series, and maybe setting us up for enough momentum for another 3-0. Grant, we've seen so many tonight.
We have seen so many, and we are on the way to a setup. Misericordia taking a pretty convincing game number 1, and I anticipate that this continues on for the rest of the series. Why is that the case? Well, look at Sync putting up 4 goals against 4 shots. That's 100% shooting accuracy. Were they able to find anything in the latter stages of the game? No. But in the beginning stages of the game, they were dominant. They come out with that same performance. Yes, of course, we're going to see Western Colorado fall yet again to a 2-0 series, and then they'll be on match point. But it's a very, very likely scenario. There's been a couple problems with Western Colorado. Monkey, I'll let you break those down.
Little bit of tough reading defensively. You have some wide open gaps, a bit of over response into the corner zones. The perimeter just seems to be sweating it out. And then you have these long bomb clears. No one is keeping either into a safety net. When you have the front 2 go for an attack, then they cannot score. Someone has to not encroach. When you allow that approach to happen more often, then you're going to give yourself a chance to be punished by it. And even if it wasn't scored right off the rip from those giant clears, it was great response and just focus to maintain that next challenge by the Cougars that ultimately punished the Mountaineers. And just, you know, there was like 2 different times, maybe even 3, where they really had a chance within like 2-1 to have an approach and really score, but they just didn't come away with the points. And that's got to be frustrating for the likes of the Mountaineers.
It definitely is frustrating. You have a team that's so good and you're wondering how the heck can we even beat them? And now all those thoughts race through your brain, but you've got to race back onto the pitch, get back into it, because it's game 2. And if you lose this one, you're on match point. Things become very difficult and the pressure begins to build. And I'm not sure that this team might have it in them to come back from such a deficit against such a good team, Misericordia. And they look for their first shot early. It's Sync, who was that main star player in game number 1, picking up 4 of the 5 goals scored.
It's a bit of a giveaway, but no one goes up to challenge from it, and that is another key factor that Misericordia has as a better stat line, is when they challenge, how fast they challenge, and who's doing it. Jolly has to catch that, whereas Smalls was left on an island that he never decided to get off of, even though he had a pretty good raft, a couple of oars, and could have gone out to swim. Maybe almost getting demoed nearby, as it will be a shot on target. Looking for the double. That's going to be an outside perimeter play. It's going to be a pre-jump, and Smalls will be forced out by Notorious. That one should have been a better, more lethal strike, at least to threaten the back of the box.
Well, sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to, and you have to come back at it from another angle. Here's Joe V30 from one angle in the corner. Sean, though, big flick over. Unfortunately, their teammate leaving the defense some time to work. Now the offense pushing, but Sean still has control somehow. They look for the bump. It could have been such a productive play, but that is a very difficult thing when you got three defenders looking across from you. Now a pass across. Sean finding it back to their teammate. Runs into Sink along the way. Interception, backboard. Sean's there as well. Now we're seeing the consistency breakthrough for Western Colorado. Joe V30 around that corner, but Jolly is there to make that stop.
Goodness gracious. Notorious was able to get there in the nick of time, and then we had a great amount of just push from that midfield to keep all of the Cougars, or from having to retract back too soon. At least they were able to posture themselves into a great offensive to stay. The Mountaineers have been able to posture themselves just fine defensively. That's a big beat. Smalls doesn't have the extra boost. He leaves it as he goes to the front side corner. That means all resources are now gathered by the Mountaineers. But on the back end, waiting to bait up Joe V30 after a big booming clear. That means it will be a numbers game. Jolly with the turnaround. Oh, they will lose possession. We're under 3 minutes remaining in the second game. There has been no score. Just a lot of tit for tat. Who's going to be able to punch the other just nearly at the midfield?
There was a lot of time given to that play in that 50, and that's why Sean will find their way through in the long run. You have that 50 all the way back that sets this up, allows them to push forward, and then one missed touch. Again, the aerial flare comes back to bite. This time on the flip side, in favor of Western Colorado, they pick up the first goal of Game 2.
That really stalled out how long that near touch before it was dropped off to the shooter was going to push the defender from the post. I think that was Sink that was just kind of hanging on for as long as possible. A little bit of Spider-Man on the wall. So we'll get to see if that one will give the Cougars a bit of inspiration to go on the offensive. Joe V30. The layup, but that's a shot on target, but it will be deflected. Doesn't count as a save, but does count at least as a stop. Jolly taking possession. He's got an option, trying to drop it over. That's gonna be a shot. No, it'll be a bouncer. It still finds its way through. The chaos will reign supreme, and so will the Mountaineers.
I am very surprised that this one went in. Yeah. Oh boy, let's not even talk about that one. Mechanical mistakes are mechanical mistakes, and you're not always gonna be figuring those out in that moment. Just don't even worry about it. 2 minutes to go. You got 2 goals to make up. Definitely doable, but a little less so now that Smalls finds a third goal to increase said deficit.
All right. This is, again, how you posture up. Joe V30 leaving the net a little bit too soon, trying to be able to get that ball on the bounce, but never letting it touch the floor, playing a little bit of hot potato, and that's a hot shot for the Mountaineers to continue to extend their lead. So a minute ago, we were scoreless. Can you believe it? It's all of 60 seconds, and this is a 3-goal deficit, and the Cougars, who were ultra dominant, haven't been able to sneak one through at all.
Well, you know what they say, when it rains, it pours, and it might be able to do a little bit more. Jolly underneath one. Might find it past that last one. It's off the sidewall, and that's just on target to net. Yep, that's how it goes. It's unfortunate, but lucky for Jolly.
I have not seen a pendulum swing of this cadence in a while. We go, what was it, 5-1, 5-2, 5-something, maybe even 6 for the likes of Misericordia before. And then this is just a scoreless venture for the Cougars as the Mountaineers came in heavy-handed, trying to just push up their defense. They have met every single shot with at least some level of connection by a player. And though that floats free, they will be able to finally break the ice and break through and get one on the board.
It's been so long since this kind of a thing has happened for the MU squad. Notorious. Beautiful angle from that left post to turn it back onto the net. 3 goals to go, certainly doable, but against the now popping off Western Colorado. Maybe it's a little bit of a different story, and it's crazy to think that Western Colorado has bounced back so quickly and now leads themselves a dominant game. It leaves you wondering what happened to Misericordia just a moment ago, and why are they shaking a little bit on defense? Why are there 3 people in the corner, 2 on the backboard? Things are getting lackadaisical. There's not a lot of care being taken care of on this defense.
Sync just was on a tear in their previous series, or rather in their previous game of this particular series. And without that flair, without that style and just kind of fury that he was bringing, there isn't a lot of pressure that Misericordia can maintain. And even though they put shots nearby, there's been a lot more connections between Joe V30 and as well as Notorious. And they were bottom of the stack for the Cougars. I know it's not a one-man show, but I mean, when you saw the first 4-4 go through and it was all Sync all the time, then that was kind of the winning factor. But there's been a bit of desync, if you will, throughout this game number 2. The Mountaineers will take it, and they have tied up the series. This is the first time that we've seen a split 1-1 in any of these 3-game sets and on stream from week 1 to 2. So that means this next one will take the cake.
This next one will indeed take the cake, Monkey. It is beautiful to see the way that Western Colorado has bounced back from this one, and we're looking forward to more things such as these for this squad. If they are able to pull back a couple more wins, then things will be looking nice and jolly for them, if you will.
Nice, that's good. And if we look back to what they did in previous iterations, I believe Sean was actually their top scorer and one of their top shooters, so glad to be able to see him back at the top. And so this is a Western Colorado team that was tried through 3 games against the Eagles in previous succession, and so they were able to find a game late after the Eagles, Benedictine had already taken 2. Now they respond a little bit sooner, and you get Misericordia, who I don't think had a whole lot of prep time before they ultimately made it into the lobby, and Sync was leading the charge. So gotta see if those support factors and all of that can come back together. It definitely seems like they lost their edge.
It does seem that way. I mean, Sync, that player, we need to have them step up again. They stepped up in game 1 and came out in a huge way. Maybe that was just luck, though, for the Misericordia squad, and they're finding out that Western Colorado is a consistent team. Yeah, you caught them off guard in the beginning, but that's a team that plays together all the time. It kind of goes back to our debate in these interviews that we've been having about, what does matter? Do you really need to know a lot about the team? But the overwhelming argument seems to be that you just got to play your game, and if you play your game well, if you're a good team, everything else happens kind of naturally. You fill in the gaps that need to be filled in, you learn how to be flexible, and then you just go and get them. Now we are 10 seconds in, and that pressure's already building for that consistent team in Western Colorado, and they will capitalize, sending 2 forward and ultimately getting 1 goal.
Man, Smalls almost had this. It would have dropped in bar down, and Sean with the heads-up play to just score it into the chaos. Michael Bay, one of those explosions back. Those are on loan, but they're not going to come away with them, as it will be, again, Mountaineers just taking it to the Cougars. And I like the biggest change being that they have decided, hey, you know what? We delayed our approaches for too long in game number 1. We're just going to take shots. Why not?
Take shots, sounds like a night to party for this Western Colorado squad. Smalls all the way up. You thought it was going to be a double tap. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to think, except you thought wrong, and now you cost yourself another goal. Western Colorado coming back in a big way, saying that, hey, this series might just be ours. They'll continue with this speed and this consistency and finding each other on a team. They're starting to gel together on a team. Beautiful shot.
Jolly, just so good. Being able to take advantage of the rotation. You see Notorious running away. Sync left at the middle. He didn't go forward. I wonder if that was just a little bit of miscommunication. Notorious might have been able to go for the initial challenge, but prioritize a boost back in. So now you just find your defense kind of waiting, and it's been all of 2/3 of a minute. Just 45 seconds now coming up into game number 3. The Mountaineers seem just as confident as they were before. Got to see if this next pop from Sync will go forward. He will have a connection. That will be a double, but he actually doesn't even find it, leaving it for a second man. I like the selfless approach. That pre-jump, though, Notorious leaving a dangerous position.
dangerous indeed. Around this corner, though, I cannot believe that it has been such a short amount of time in this game that we've seen so many goals go in. Now Joe V30 will find the first for Misericordia. It's a long bomb in return. We saw it from the corner of Jolly, and now we have it across midfield, more than half court, half field, whatever you want to call it, and that is Joe's to keep.
And that's one of the few times that we see a flash of what Western Colorado looked like in game number 1, now slowly crawling out into game number 3. After they fix the majority of the rotational issues, that one comes back to bite them, and Joe V30 does get the punishing factor. And
what a save.
That pace nearly enough and nearly on target, but Sean forcing a double commit on the defense. Shot put back. Oh, it's short of the post.
That was almost such a great play. Now you got to return it, though, and you get it back on offense. Torius says, yeah, maybe there is a possibility. Leaves it all up to Sean, which is not the person you want on the forefront, but they'll miss again. Off the crossbar, third, rips the shot. No, Jolly, rest in peace, but the defense has already returned and retreated. It almost falls apart again. Joe V30 from the ceiling down to their teammate, nothing to be found. How quickly it could have fallen apart, but also what could have been if the offense just took a little bit more time, but instead all of it wraps back around to Sean, who gets the goal in the end.
That was a lot. There was so much going on, and just being able to get a flat pinch off of everything. Sink was left with no boost, and he had his boys going left, right, and center to try and get bumps, try and create tackles and openings, and Sink just never had enough velocity to get that initial goal. It turns into a counter the other direction, and basically a 2-point play in favor of Western Colorado. This one will at least go through the middle stripes, but Misericordia is going to need a lot of flash and a lot of pizzazz to be able to get more creative and get around this defense the Mountaineers are posting up.
In the end, they need a lot of goals is what we're really trying to say, and this could be one. Joe V30 makes sure that it is indeed the case. A beautiful play off the sidewall. When you've got one to beat on offense, or defense rather, that's the perfect play you want to make. Joe V30 comes around, beats out the defender in return, and now you're 2 goals away from tying the game. You've proved that you're resilient. Can we see our first game 5 of not only this week, but I believe the entire season? If this is the way this goes, I think the pace absolutely would prove that that is the case, except I may have just jinxed it a little bit, and that will be back to the 3-goal deficit.
It'd be great to see a game 5 out of 3 games. I don't know how it would. I would love to see a game 5. But when we get freebies like this one, Western Colorado says, you know what, Grant? You live in a world where we don't allow those kinds of moves. We shut this down right here, right now.
Oh, man. Listen, it's like that set of 5 with how many 3-0 sweeps there have been today. It's all your mind can think about. It's like, oh yeah, 3-0 sweep, but it's a best of 3, or a set of 3. Well, your mind wants to say it's a best of 5 that have just all unfortunately resulted in sweeps. You forget life, you forget the format, and I guess apparently Western Colorado forgot how to do kickoffs because that one slides right by them. And now we're back to that 2-goal deficit. Is this the part where it's doable? Well, I'm not sure. So now the series, you know, it's not a best of 5. We are indeed on match point, tied 1-1, just to clarify. So whoever wins this game wins the series, and it could be Western Colorado, who would have loved to close it, but a quick counterattack the other way puts us between 1 goal, courtesy of Joe V and their hat trick.
You know, we may only have 3 game sets, but this feels like a game 5. Like these two have been able to just suss out each other, really adapt to play styles, and punish when just no one is available, and just rather absent on the defensive half. 1:45 to go. Misericordia. They scored 2 in a row. After Western Colorado had it at a 5-2 lead, they've cut that down to just Una. Sink. He was such a maestro, a menace, an absolute weapon, and Joe V30 with that tying shot. Misericordia brings us even at 5.
A beautiful comeback, even better pass though, caught out the second guy who said, nope, I can't get to that, and neither could the third. We are all tied up through the resilience that Misericordia has brought to the table, and that man Joe V30 has brought with their team. Now it's just a matter of holding on. Can you pull it back? Can you overturn the lead? Can you get it back? This is the series that we are worried about at this point. Sean gets it to the backboard. This can be a shot opportunity for Western Colorado, just missing the mark by a little bit. Now sync up, cut off by Smalls, which means Jolly could be around. They take a little while to get there, but that bump from Smalls really helps them out. Just not enough to get it by and back to midfield, but they will maintain this offensive pressure because of it. As the minute winds down, Jolly can't find their way through.
Misericordia has been better lately, but can they be the best late? Who will break under pressure? Do we find ourselves heading to an inevitable OT? Not if this defense falls, but no! Sean loses their focus. Now it turns into a counterplay. These have been so punishable against the Mountaineers. Collecting just in front of his own box, looking for a challenge. The Cougars, if they have it, it's gonna be a 1-on-3. Joe V30 with everything in his face turns around fearless. We have under a half minute to go.
Joe V30 continues this press forward for their team, but the ball bounces back and forth courtesy of the nature of the quick-paced game of Rocket League. No way! Jolly thought they were secured to go for boost, but it's just tragedy on the goal line. Sync fires one simple shot, catches the defense sleeping, and that might just be the way that Misericordia walks away with the series win.
They've gotten 4 in a row, and the one time Jolly felt safe to go for boost, it turns into catastrophe. 9 seconds left. They have one offensive press left, and it's gotta be secured for the Cougars. 2 seconds, airborne. Can they keep it off the ground? No, I do not believe they can. Misericordia, they'll take the series. What a comeback, what a match. It might as well have been a game 5. They will take this series 2-1.